Welcome. We're so excited that you took time out of your busy day to join us today. So we kind of have a series going where we're talking about the pathful journey to ensuring that all students are future ready. And so today we're going to be talking about workability and CTE collaboration and the value in that for your students. So thank you for coming today. And we look forward to kind of sharing some solutions around that and some discussions. So I'm going to let Tricia introduce everyone and get started.
Yeah, I want to start really quick. So a couple housekeeping is that instead of, if you have any questions or you have any responses, please put those in the Q&A and not in the chat. So you can ask questions. We'll kind of monitor that during the presentation and answer those for you. And before I introduce our panelists, I wanted to just ask a question and you can answer in the Q&A. How often does your CTE department collaborate with your workability department? How often? Is that the question, Ron and Tedra?
Yes,
yeah.
That's correct.
So start with that. Again, how often does your CTE department collaborate with your workability department?
So we're not getting any responses yet. So maybe that's good that we're talking about that collaboration and some ideas. I know we were sharing that. So maybe this is going to be a great opportunity for them to learn from Ron and Tedra some great tricks that they have.
Well, and I will use that as an opportunity to introduce. So we have here Ron Weston. He is the coordinator of career technical education in Riverside Unified School District, and Tedra Trim, who is a transition coordinator with Riverside Unified School District. So wanted to thank them for coming. I asked them to speak because I did sit in at the CTE conference in the fall in Rancho Mirage. I sat in at one of their sessions, and I was really impressed with their collaboration and them recognizing some of the requirements that kind of intersect with CTE and workability or transition teams. So welcome, guys. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'll start today. I just have some questions, and I want it to be very informal and kind of fun, and most importantly for people to kind of leave today with just some great tools to start that collaboration. So can you guys kind of tell us the story? What is your story of how you guys came to start this process?
Tedra, you want me to take this one?
Sure, go ahead and start, and I can add anything at the end if we.
Sure, sounds great. So for those of you that are familiar with the Perkins 4 or Perkins 5 legislation, some of the work that we're required to do for that federal funding is to work with our special populations groups. And so I've been associated with CTE since 2005 in our USD under the old Perkins 3 legislation. And as we transitioned from 3 to 4, one of the pieces was making sure that we were spending significant time on special populations, which includes special education, non-traditional careers, and some other things. And so at that time, I worked side by side, but not very closely with our special ed department. We made sure that there was some funding available to them. But CTE in California at that time was it was just a small portion of some of the work that the districts were doing. And so as we transitioned through, lean years through the recession and then coming back, California started putting in significant funding. And so based on Perkins 4 legislation and then some of the state funding, we were required to ramp up some of that work. And so I started working with Tedra probably 7 or 8 years ago, very briefly on a couple of little projects here and there. And most of that centered around our data gathering for the state of California, and a lot of our students and a lot of her students are, intertwined. They participate in our CTE programs. And so for some of the data collection, we kind of had similar questions to ask of our graduates. And so a lot of that conversation was just based around that. Out of that came some changes at this district level in leadership in the special education department. And there were more questions about what we could do as a group. And this, even though it's directed through Perkins funding, it's not about the money. It's about the work that can be done simultaneously and collaboratively, because we're doing the same thing for the same students, right? And so we started meeting on a regular basis, not just to make sure that our data was clean and that we were doing our follow-ups for both groups, but there was a need to make sure that our content for our special education students in the CTE world was UC A through G ready for our students. We wanted to make sure that we were meeting regularly. And so I can let Tedra tell a little bit more of that story, but our goal was to really make sure that where there were similarities, we weren't working in isolation, but we'd come together and kind of build a connection.
Yeah, for those who aren't completely aware of what the data follow-up is on both ends, CTE does a 6-month follow-up after graduation, and Workability 1 does a 1-year follow-up. So I think, and then special education does a follow-up as well about 1 year after. So what was happening is we're both following up. We're following up with the same kids. People are getting multiple phone calls. That really isn't good practice. And so we learned that, okay, let's first, CTE goes first because they have the 6-month follow-ups. We're getting their data from them. Data was extremely similar. We were able to use that and to decide, okay, now we have to finish the rest of these. We would do the Workability 1 follow-ups, and then our special education department would take everything we've already done, and they would follow up on anybody that wasn't in one of those 2 groups. So it just created an efficiency in our school district. Instead of having all 3 departments making all of these phone calls, it just made sense to collaborate and talk about that. And then we had some shared needs. We have a middle school Workability 1 grant in our district, meaning we're taking kids in the 8th grade and we're doing that career readiness with them. What do you want to do? What's your interests? And when we were looking at that, when we're talking about what the next steps are for kids, a really big ask I had of our CTE department is, it's a long way out to talk to students about a career for after high school. I really want to make it relevant for them today. What are they going to do their next step? And in order to get them to think about the next step, we had to be able to tell them, when you go to high school, there are all kinds of different pathways you can take. There's A through G pathways, there's CTE pathways, there's combinations of the 2 of them. But in order to make good choices, in order to figure out their schedule, they have to know what those pathways are. So I think early on, probably seven years ago, I don't remember exactly, but it was several years ago that we went to Ron and his team, and we said we would like help with a career pathways exploration day. And what we did is we took all of the career pathways we had in our high schools, and we met with our community college, and we found those pathways that extended at our local community college. And we had a big career pathway day where our CTE department, our community college CTE department, and us, we all worked together, and we made a huge event for all of our 8th graders in special education programs to go to. And they got to see all of these CTE pathways. And it kind of, little by little, our relationship has kind of grown from there, from data, from just sharing data to these monthly meetings to how can we help each other out. So not only are our students more aware of the course selection they can have in the CTE pathways, but they're actually bringing more students in the special populations into their programs, because now they're much more aware of the programs.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. You guys inspire me. So you guys talked a little bit about it, at least as far as like grant and funding goals, but what are some like specific, maybe even district goals that you guys have for your programs?
So Ron, you want me to start with that one? So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, we both of us have, we're both supporting. We focus entirely on special education, and as part of their fiscal obligations, they need to support special programs as well, or special populations. So, we knew right away that we could come together on this. So we serve on each other's committees. So Workability One is required to have local partnership committee meetings or partnership meetings where we meet with and have representation from parents, different school members, inter-district collaboration, interagency collaboration, community participation. And we're both doing these things, and we still have our separate ones, but they serve on our local partnership committees, and we attend their local partnership committees as well. Both of us are trying to prepare students for gainful employment. I mean, that's both agencies are doing that. We're both working on the instruction of real world 21st century skills. We had that in common. Both of us look at the dashboard. I mean, I think both of us are numbers people. We want our kids to do better. It's all about, are our students benefiting from this work we're doing, and how can we see that? So that dashboard, the college and career indicators on the dashboard, very important to see those go up, and are we making a difference? And that's something that we're looking at. Classroom-based work exploration. It's whether it's CTE or it's Workability One, we're both striving to do that. Instruction of what they call soft skills. I mean, what they call essential skills nowadays, but those essential skills, community partnerships. What was happening is we were going out of the community and we're talking to businesses, and like, oh, Donna was here. And so if you don't know, Donna is our job developer or our community liaison for CTE. And we're like, well, we don't want multiple members from the community just bombarding people and acting like we've never spoken to each other. So it'd be really nice to get on board with this. And so if for instance, they went to a Phoenix Fire Helmets in town, they do an amazing job bringing in all populations and training them well and having a really diverse workforce. And they're like, this is a great employer. You guys need to see this. So they made sure that we went and toured that employer.
Pedro, somehow you got muted.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure
It's
how
okay.
that happened. If we have others that we're working with and we see that, oh, this would be a good match for our CTE department, or maybe this company could help with their internships, we try to match with that. So now we've got, we're trying to share our businesses and share some of the community relationships we have to make both of our jobs better and to serve our students better. Do you want to carry on from there, Ron, or?
Yeah, I do, and all your stuff is really good, and we're one of the things I think is most powerful for us on the CTE side of things is that several years ago we kind of revamped our mission statement from just wanting to make kids college, career, and world ready, and what does that really mean, to we believe all students need to be career ready, period. And so the work that we're doing isn't just specialized in special education or with our English learner population at the high school level. It's transitioning down into the middle school level. It's using our resources to do the same thing for our elementary kids. And what we're finding is that those students that are taking time to do some career exploration are their social emotional wellness is much better, and they're healthier. And so as they transition from elementary to middle school and then on to high school, they've already had some of these things that have been foundational over the past few years, as opposed to Tedra's group having to do some work and the CTE group having to do some work. And so when we've been inclusive with all of our students and providing resources and access to some of that stuff, it's made our lives a lot easier. And then we're able to see touch points that are much more common as well.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. So then I, must ask, what made you look for a resource similar to Pathful? So it was probably Virtual Job Shadow and then NEPRIS, obviously, but what prompted you to look for that type of resource?
Sure. So when I started full-time in CTE in 2014, 15, One of the things that we really wanted to make sure kids had something that they could spend some time looking at careers within the industry sector. So we had a number of film, TV, video production programs in our district, a couple culinary programs. And so, you know, we had 10 to 12 different programs, but kids were only focusing in, especially in their health programs, on I'm either going to be a doctor or I'm going to be a nurse, and there's no other options whatsoever. And so at one of the conferences that we attended, Virtual Job Shadow was one of the vendors, and we took a look and got a pilot and noticed that there was a lot of options for students to see that they had choices to make within that career industry sector. And so we've been a partner with Virtual Job Shadow, now Pathful, since I think 16, 17. And it's been really beneficial because we found that our usage, we bought the licenses for all of our students, K-12, even though we wanted to focus in on CTE students at the beginning. And we found that our elementary students were using the program without any direction more than our high school kids who had direction, because teachers students had finished a lesson, the teachers put them on independent study, and they had a chance to go onto their computer and check some of the stuff out. The videos are really engaging, and they offer students a glimpse into what the career sector looks like, or that job for the day. And then as students start to drill down, as Pathful's taken over kind of the whole umbrella, added a lot of resources like flex lessons and resume building, internship opportunities, university wages, a lot of different things. And so students now can really start to dig and drill into things that they find interesting. But for us, the biggest piece that I think is beneficial to the CTE side of the house is that our students are able to do some research on who they are. And we call them in Riverside talents, interests, passions, and strengths, or their tips. And so they can start at the early elementary level or at the high school level, depending on anywhere, you know, they first have that first connection to Pathful Explore. And they should be able to do these assessments once a year, so they get a chance to see who they are, what they're good at, what they like. And then maybe the next year, because they've had a little bit of that career exploration, can make some adjustments to those things that they like. And so we really want them to come into high school prepared to join a CTE program and have those options extended beyond even the high school.
Yeah, Tedra, do you have anything to add?
So with Workability, when we have additional needs to CTE, we are documentation heavy. We are working with IEPs. IEPs are legal. Well, we don't work with IEPs ourselves, but transition is an IEP mandate. So it's one of the indicators, and you need to be able to document that you've done work in these areas. So the nice thing is we keep a lot of data, and for many years Workability kept all these paper files on our students, but as students transition between grades, or sometimes they move schools, paper files can get difficult. We are a Google campus, so all of our campuses have Google. We have classrooms, we have one-to-one devices. That works great, but even if you have a Google Classroom, when a student moves to a new school or whatever, their information disappears. And so one thing that was really great about Pathful is their information stayed with them. So if we did something, even if we did it in the 8th grade, it stayed with them. I mean, the 9th, we could go in and find an assessment they did 2 years ago, and it's right there for teachers to access or for us to access. Workability we were given admin level access, so we can go and see anything any teacher did with that student. We can pull lessons, we can pull activities, anything they did on the platform, we now have access to. And that's a lot of documentation and a lot of information we have at our fingertips. And we don't need to worry about it disappearing. As long as they're in our district, whether they change grades or teachers or schools, it's still right there, which is really nice for us as a documentation. As important as documentation is for us, for the Workability 1 grant, for our IEPs, all of that, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you. And that is something that I get asked a lot is, you know, how accessible are those reports, or how can I, the reporting is unfortunately sometimes becomes the most important part of the end of the year, right?
Trisha, too, if I could add, we talked a little bit about Explore, but in terms of Connect, because of the pandemic and our students not being able to go get authentic work-based learning experiences out in the public, at the high school level, we really want students to experience, and we don't want them experiencing in the classroom. We want them out in the field, working with people who are actually doing the jobs. When that stopped, we were looking for a resource to kind of help jumpstart some of that, and Nepris was able to jump in fairly quickly. We were able to get connected to their team, and of course, the beauty now of Pathful is that you have Explore in junior and Nepris all rolled into that one big umbrella, and so we're able to provide all those resources under one login.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
And I also, I appreciated the quality of the videos. A lot of the videos can get old fast when it comes to careers. It's amazing how quickly industries change. And the fact that Pathful was getting those new videos, and you had videographers going out there and getting new content. That was a refreshing thing for us to be able to share with our students.
Yeah, it's funny, even me, if I look at a video that looks like it's more than, 10 years old, I don't want to watch it. So it's the same, and especially for kids, right? Because they're always at the top of the trends, right? So they'll smell out an old video right away.
Well, and the thing of it is, kids are such visual consumers right now, and the pandemic even heightens that. So the ability to go in and see something that is current and relevant to them, Ron mentioned relevant learning. It is really relevant. If I'm thinking about making my whole career something, my career, that's a life decision, and we're asking kids to do that at a very early age. So as much as we can expose them to what's really out there, they can make a really good decision for themselves. That's such an excellent point.
Yeah. And I guess you guys kind of talked about this, but another question was, what part of either Explore or Connect do you find most helpful specifically for your students? And I guess you guys would probably have a little bit different take on that too.
So I can start with this one. For us, the career assessments were really important. Workability 1 and IEPs require that you have a current transition assessment every single year. And so having multiple assessments available on the NEPRA, or not the, I keep on changing your guys' names, on the Pathful Explore platform means that we can see, like, for instance, regardless of what department gave that student the assessment, we can see that it's there and that it was done. So we don't necessarily have multiple departments giving the same assessment. Like, for instance, I don't know how many assessments will be given by, how many RIASEC assessments get, or the Hollins assessment get delivered each year, one by the counseling department, one by CTE, one by Workability 1. And now we can look there and we can say, oh, we know that kid's already taken an assessment. So we know that, that part's done. We can move on to the other things we need to work with students on. And my second big thing was the flex lessons. First of all, this came in when we went virtual in 2020, because we had Pathful Explore, because we had Google platforms and our kids were already in our Google classes and they were already on Pathful Explore, we did this seamlessly. We were able to give content, give lessons to them really, really quickly, and we didn't miss a step with that. But also what I was able to do is I was able to take those Pathful Explore, and I actually brought up my screen and brought some of them up, but that same concept of getting the 8th graders ready for the next step is, how do we let students know what these CTE programs are in our school districts? And so you already had those career cluster flex lessons as part of your content in that flex lesson area. And what I was able to do is take those, and because you allow editing on them, I was able to take those and I was able to take out maybe your videos on certain things. And I was able to put our RUSD videos for our CTE programs to show them this is what you'll be doing at the high school level. And so I mean, in some ways I use the flex lessons just as they are, but I love that I was able to take them, and now I have a flex lesson on every single pathway that we have in RUSD that a student could on their own work through, see what the industry is, see what it's all about, see what our high school program looks like. And then I added again what our college program looks like in that CTE area, all in the flex lessons that are on Pathful Explore. They can do it on their own, but I can also go see now what they've done, which lessons they've gone through, and we've got all of that documentation in one place.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I know that's one of my favorite parts of the Pathfuls of Flex Lessons, and also just really how easy I went in and created one for the California Dream Act, because we didn't have one in there and didn't know, I didn't have any training on it, by the way. And I was able to just figure it out. It's pretty, I like how user-friendly it is. Makes it easy for everybody.
So I have an answer. It's a little bit different because I'm looking at it from a little bit different lens. But for CTE and Riverside, we have a 15-year continuum, and so we're really looking at students entering at kindergarten and then transitioning out of CTE in their second year of college. And so we've divided up that 15 years into explore, engage, and experience at the different levels. And so to not ask for teachers, if you're a teacher in the room or you're an administrator in the room, it's not just one more thing that we want to put on the teacher's plate. Here's a great resource, and here's, we're going to give you hours and hours of training of how to do it. But to be able to take the flex lessons, and then we have hired a career support specialist who focuses in specifically on K-8 to go into the classroom and just come alongside the teacher and show some of the professional development opportunities and the lessons that she's created, so that when a student does finish a lesson early, or you're in the middle of state testing or whatever it happens to be, there are these easy components to keep those kids active. And so we're looking at it from that perspective, not to add one more thing onto the plate, but one thing to come alongside those teachers in the classroom. And the other piece on the explore and connect side is that if you're a language arts teacher and you're teaching a novel, or you're teaching some type of reading that has a character that has a specific career, what a great tool to do extended learning opportunities with. And so we're looking at it from that perspective on the CTE side.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do you guys have any success stories to share about specific students or group of students, especially in maybe how you guys collaborated, or just anything special to kind of share out?
I think some of my success stories have to do with a lot of things we've already talked about. The fact that our teachers now have that documentation and have all of those things, that they have this cumulative record of what the students have. And so, without, going into personal details, we have had some pretty high profile IEPs where the teachers have been able to pull that data off of Pathful Explore and use it as part of that whole IEP process, and it's ready, and it's made those a lot easier to share. And so those are some specifics. And just, again, being able to share with teachers, parents across the district, keeping it there, that has made a difference in our program. So not a specific one, because we do a lot with students, and this is one component, but definitely an important component.
Thank you.
I have one, and it's a little bit different as well. But again, our thought process is that we believe all students need to be career ready, period. And we have a group of students who are getting ready to leave high school and enter either the workforce, or if they've thought about college, maybe community college, that still may be on the cusp of graduating from high school. So a number of years ago, we created a program that's more vocational in nature for those students that are at risk and maybe credit deficient. And the goal is to have our maintenance and operations employees actually work with those students to do some vocational training, and they go and do some job shadowing. But we use Pathful to help them build a resume. We use the Explore process so that as they're doing some landscaping or some trades, they can go in and do some of that extended learning. And then what we're finding is a lot of those students don't see themselves as A, successful, and B, college going. And because our district works closely with our community college and they have easy access to entering their college, we find a lot of them at the beginning of the program, which is only 6 months, will say, I'm not going to college, I'm just looking to get a job. And by the end of the program, they're already enrolled in Riverside Community College because they see the benefit. And I think that the Pathful content has helped them see the options that are available to them, and the personal touch of being able to work with men and women who may have similar situations in the past can have come alongside them and have mentored them. So using all of that together, and we've seen, we usually have about 25 to 30 students that complete that program every year. And a large number of them are entering the workforce prepared or entering college and ready to take on the next challenge. And Pathful has been a big part of that.
And I actually do have something to add. Since you've acquired Nepris and have those videos and that system available too. So when we work with students, it makes a big difference to be able to share local employees with them, local businesses. And so a lot of videos, they might be shot on the East Coast or wherever. And there was a whole series on San Bernardino, and there's all kinds of employers that are part of our Inland Empire. It makes a big difference to show a student a video of a business or an employee or a career in the Inland Empire. And they look at that, they see themselves better that way. And so having that platform as part of this, I have seen their eyes open wide. And, you know, you had one of our local artists, I can't remember, I want to say Ricardo, he does the metal sculptures. He's got a lot of them out in the desert, the Borrego Springs area. But wait, sorry, we had information on him, but you had the local partnership series with the sheriff's department. You had some city government workers that are local. And I think that means they can relate to that better. They actually saw that and said, that can be me. And that was exciting to see.
Yeah, well, that goes into the 3 pillars of career, right? Your social capital, your occupational identity, and your skills. When they have people that they can connect with, or people that can mentor them, that's part of their social capital. Like, who do you know, who's in your network, and then who do you believe you can be, right? And so when they see themselves in others and people in their community, they start to believe they can be that person. So that's, I mean, I guess that's the beauty here of the Pathful Explore and Connect. Thank you for sharing that. I do love when we have, that's been kind of my big thing, is make sure we have more local people that are volunteering to be part of that, our Pathful Connect. I actually, if I have a minute, I want to share, my daughter goes to Riverside Unified School District, and I have a sweet Explore Junior success story. So when I started here about 6 months ago, I'm sure you guys have heard this story. Brooklyn is in 6th grade, and Rivera Elementary, Riverside Unified, and she, I set her up with an account when I started because I wanted to see from, process of a student. And she said, Mommy, I've already done this. I've taken this test before. And I said, Brooklyn, stop. You did not, just take the test. And she's like, no, I really did. And I said, you no. And she said, I did during COVID, when everything shut down and my teacher, gave us some work to do. She would say, go in Clever and log in to whatever activities you want to do and then report back. And so she spent a lot of time, she discovered Pathful Junior, and she spent a lot of time exploring, kind of back to, I think, Ron, you said that kids can just get on. You don't, even if they don't assign the lessons, they can still explore. Well, the last few years, unbeknownst to me, Brooklyn would always talk about how she wants to be a city manager and how she wants to be governor and how she wants to major in political science. And I always thought it was strange because that's her social capital isn't around that at all. I'm a former educator. I'm now in sales, and her dad is a broadcaster. So politics isn't really our thing. And she said, how do you think I how I learned how to become a governor and how I know I need to major in political science? I learned it in Pathful, well, virtual job shadow, but it's now Pathful. Anyway, so even though you guys don't realize some of your success stories and the work that you're doing in that district, I mean, just think about that. That has made a difference. And so it's 3 years into this pandemic, and she still talks about that. That's what she wants to be. That's and enterprising. I did make her take it so I can see hers. It's social and enterprising. So I'm pretty sure those are probably two good skills or interests to have when you are wanting to be a politician.
I think that's a fantastic story, Tricia. And Melinda and I were just on a national policy legislative call, and they really talked about marshaling your resources to truly make a difference and be intentional about your actions and how that really is forward. And I think that Ron, you and Tedra have really shown how you're being very intentional in your collaborations, and Tricia's story is the perfect example of how that comes full circle, and that you're being intentional in your choices to work together and to collaborate. You really are making a difference in kids' lives, and that's as an educator, that's why what we're all about.
And I was going to just finish up with asking, and you guys talked about it, but really, what do you think have been some of your best practices in this process, so that what are you guys doing to continue to connect and collaborate on a regular basis?
So the biggest thing is we continue to meet monthly and just talking to each other. But I have regular phone calls. For instance, they have a big Kaiser panel coming up. So they're bringing kids out to talk to a Kaiser location where they're going to find out all about all kinds of medical careers. And they called us up, do you want to bring your students too? So just those kind of invitations go a long way with us. And of course, if we want to pre-prep them, you've got all the medical type videos and stuff in Pathful Explorer that we could pre-prep our students for something like that to get them ready for that. Some best practice, we've worked together on, Ron kind of touched on it earlier, on an A through G level class for our students to make sure that our students with IEPs, that sometimes a lot of our CTE programs are very intensive. We have a lot of medical programs in our district, and a lot in engineering, medical, and we want to make sure that there is options at all level for our students. So we actually, with the help of CTE, created a A through G level it's a job skills class that they can get a variety of knowledge, get the job skills. We can work with flex lessons, those types of things. And CTE was able to support us. I had no idea how to get a class cleared as A through G. And so the collaboration between us and CTE really helped us make that a reality and have that happen for our kids. Again, all of these lessons we've done as far as what the next step is for CTE to our 8th graders, just getting our kids on a clear, kids need to know what they're going to do before they hit high school. They can't just roll out of 8th grade and expect to know what the high school offers. I mean, the counselors are maybe there for 30 minutes that day, or they might do a little trip, but they need some thorough information, and it takes work to really give them that information so they can make good choices, because it's amazing what an influence that the choices you make in high school have on what your opportunities are after high school, and that those decisions start much earlier than I think many kids realize. And so that's definitely a practice for us. Again, just collaborating on our local partnership meetings, them coming to our local partnership meetings, us joining theirs, hearing our needs, understanding our needs. I didn't understand some of the fiscal responsibilities and how these funds braid, and I had no idea about this before we started really kind of conversing and talking. And I wouldn't know that if we didn't talk on a regular basis, and we wouldn't know how to work together. We wouldn't even know how we could work together if we just didn't start talking and being around each other. And, you know, Ron will invite us to go to conferences to make sure that we're well trained. So as we're giving information to our students, that we're giving good information to our students. And while we're at these conferences, we're able to talk to his team, we're able to collaborate. And so we know each other now, we do discuss things, and that makes a difference.
Thank you for that.
And Tedrich stole mine, so I can't say conferences, but that's really the most important thing. You know, we're encouraging our staff, whether they're a CTE teacher or paraprofessional like a counselor or guidance tech or an administrator, to attend some of these conferences to get some of that information. But we open it up to some of the special ed group at the high schools, and then Tedra and her team, so that they get that professional development too. So they're hearing the message from the state and from other groups that may have some best practices that we can adopt as well. So it's always learning. And you know, working in isolation doesn't help anyone. And when you come together and you spend that time collaborating, and again, you know, we talked about these monthly meetings. We're not talking about 2 or 3 hour meetings. We're talking about a check-in call on a Google Meet for 30 minutes once a month, just to find out how everybody's doing, what maybe small or large projects are happening, and then how we can support the other group through some of the work that we're doing.
I was just going to mention how impressed I am. Obviously, a lot of your best practice, I feel like the whole webinar has been a best practice. And I'm just impressed with how good you guys work together and how aligned you are in your mission. And it's about the students. One of my favorite stories I'm always telling Trisha, you need to tell that story about Brooklyn, because that's, for me, I love that story. It's one of my favorites. But for you guys, your work obviously is paying off, because that's through the eyes of the students. So just kudos to you guys for the work that you're doing. I'm just really impressed.
We
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Yeah, we feel like we've got more work to do, but we're excited about it, and we've got the structure to do it at this point.
It does seem like
Completely
you
agree.
guys, yeah, you guys, just within the district, how, you know, probably more at the district level, how they have really offered you guys support, right? I know, Ron, you're kind of building out those career pathways that I tell people all the time, go to Ron, because they're creating curriculum, and they're, you know, as you said, K-14 is so super impressive. So thank you guys. I have nothing but respect for both of you in this area. You're definitely you know, ahead of you know, charging ahead. Well, again, we can kind of start wrapping up. Those are all my questions. Do you have anything else like that you would like to share? And then I don't know if we have any, doesn't look like we have any Q&A from our participants.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that we share speakers and study tours and stuff like that. I think I mentioned it quickly, but we do a lot of sharing on that. So we just had a big college and career day event on Friday, and they support us with some of their business partners that came to that and you know, presented for us, and that helps. So you know, again, just sharing the resources.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think you know, just being able to come together and do things hand in hand, it's so powerful, and it frees you up to do other things, because you've got someone that's doing something that's very similar. And when the end goal is the student, then it's really freeing, actually.
Collaboration can a lot of times be rowing in the same direction, right? You're both are trying to help kids, and so when you're rowing in the same, it does make it easier. So that's a great point, Ron.
Well, I'm gonna just ask any of our participants out there, if you have any questions, now would be the time to get them in. I know we should probably wrap up soon, because I believe we had scheduled 45 minutes for this. We'll just see. We have a quiet group today.
Well, I think that's because Ron and Tedra answered all the questions in their presentation as they collaborated, right?
Well, and I know, Tasha, I know you put our email addresses in there, and those are available. So if you do have questions, we welcome answering those questions online. So if there's something that you didn't want to ask here and you want to send an email, please feel free to shoot us something, because we'll respond to that.
Yes, and thank you guys for meeting with us today.
Yeah, thank you for
Yes, thank you.
coming. And yeah, we appreciate that. Love hearing your story.
Okay, so I guess we haven't got any other questions. So as Ron and Tedra mentioned, feel free to email if you do think of questions. I always think of my questions about 10 minutes after I get out of the meeting. So that's a great resource, and they were gracious enough to let us share that with you. I also popped Trisha's information in there if you want to learn more about Pathful and maybe how that might be a solution that would be beneficial for your students. I put her email address in there as well. Again, we're going to honor your time, and we really appreciate you coming and talking with us today and learning about how collaboration really does impact students. So I think we did I just loved all the sharing that happened. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.